Picture this: a decorated military colonel with 2 decades of unbroken combat simulation victories stands before a packed arena of elite fighter pilots. His chest gleams with ribbons earned through blood and valor. His reputation commands respect from generals and fear from enemies. For 20 years, his name has been synonymous with tactical perfection. No pilot has ever come close to matching his legendary performance record. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Now imagine his shocked expression when a quiet captain with a supposedly weak call sign doesn't just challenge his record. She demolishes it so completely that it rewrites military aviation history forever. What happened next didn't just humble an arrogant colonel. It exposed a truth so powerful that it transformed how America trains its deadliest pilots. This isn't just about breaking records. This is about how the most dangerous predators often disguise themselves as harmless prey, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal their true nature. And when that moment comes, the impact reverberates far beyond any individual rivalry. The scorching Colorado sun blazed down on Fort Harrison's prestigious tactical training center as Captain Sarah Chen stepped through the imposing steel gates that separated legends from wannabes. Her worn combat boots created a rhythmic pattern against the immaculate concrete pathway, each step carrying her deeper into a world where reputation meant everything and weakness was hunted down like enemy aircraft. Fort Harrison wasn't just another military base. It was the cathedral of American air superiority, where the nation's most elite fighter pilots gathered annually for trials that could make careers or destroy them in a matter of hours. The facility sprawled across hundreds of acres of pristine Colorado terrain, its hangars housing the most advanced aircraft in the world, its runways witnessing daily displays of aerial mastery that would leave civilian pilots breathless with envy. Sarah's appearance suggested she didn't belong in this rarefied atmosphere. Her flight suit had seen better decades, its fabric softened by countless missions that remained classified in Pentagon filing cabinets. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail that spoke of practicality over vanity. Nothing about her suggested the kind of aggressive confidence that typically characterized successful fighter pilots. Most tellingly, the small patch on her shoulder bore a call sign that seemed almost laughably inappropriate for this environment: Sparrow. In a world where pilots earned fearsome monikers like Viper, Reaper, and Thunderbolt, her call sign sounded more like a nature documentary than a combat designation. The morning air crackled with testosterone-fueled energy as groups of pilots clustered around gleaming aircraft, their conversations a mixture of tactical discussion and competitive posturing. F-16 Fighting Falcons and F-22 Raptors lined the tarmac like metallic predators basking in the mountain sunshine, their weapon systems temporarily dormant, but radiating the kind of lethal potential that made enemies think twice about challenging American airspace. These weren't ordinary military pilots. They were the cream of the cream, individuals whose flying abilities had been tested in real combat zones, where mistakes meant death rather than embarrassment. Many wore ribbons indicating combat tours in hostile territories where split-second decisions separated heroes from casualties. Their call signs had been earned through fire, their reputations forged in the crucible of actual warfare. At the center of this martial pageantry stood Colonel Marcus Thompson, a towering figure whose very presence seemed to bend the morning light around him. At 45, Thompson represented everything the modern fighter pilot aspired to become. His call sign, Thunderbolt, wasn't just a name. It was a promise of devastating aerial supremacy that had been fulfilled in combat zones across 3 continents. Thompson's record spoke for itself in numbers that seemed almost fictional. 847 consecutive simulation victories spanning 2 full decades, 0 defeats, 0 compromises, 0 excuses. His tactical brilliance had become the stuff of military legend, his technique studied in war colleges around the world, his name spoken with the kind of reverence typically reserved for historical figures. The colonel's physical presence matched his professional reputation. Standing 6 feet 3 inches in his perfectly pressed uniform, Thompson commanded attention through sheer gravitational force. His steel-gray eyes missed nothing, constantly scanning his environment with the predatory awareness of someone accustomed to life-or-death decision-making. When he spoke, conversations stopped. When he moved, people adjusted their positions to accommodate his passage. Sarah approached the main registration building with the deliberate pace of someone who had learned to conserve energy for battles. That mattered. The structure itself was a monument to military efficiency, its clean lines and functional design reflecting the no-nonsense approach that characterized everything at Fort Harrison. Through its windows, she could see tactical displays showing real-time global air traffic, reminding everyone present that their training had immediate relevance to ongoing military operations worldwide. The facility's reputation extended far beyond American borders. Allied nations sent their best pilots here for advanced training. Enemy intelligence services would have paid fortunes for access to the tactical innovations developed within these walls. The very concrete beneath Sarah's feet had been walked by future generals, by pilots who would go on to shape the outcome of conflicts that hadn't yet begun. As Sarah neared the building's entrance, she passed groups of pilots engaged in the kind of casual conversation that revealed the extraordinary nature of their profession. One group discussed combat maneuvers they'd performed over hostile territory. Another analyzed the tactical advantages of different aircraft configurations. A third debated the effectiveness of various missile systems, based on their personal experience using them against actual targets. These conversations weren't theoretical. Every pilot present had risked their life multiple times in service to their country. Their casual demeanor masked the reality that they represented some of the most dangerous individuals on the planet, capable of delivering destruction with surgical precision or devastating force, depending on mission requirements. The morning briefing schedule posted near the entrance revealed the intensity of the upcoming trials. Multiple simulation scenarios designed to test everything from basic flying competency to advanced tactical innovation. Combat situations ranging from air-to-air engagement to ground support missions. Evaluation criteria that would push even experienced pilots to their absolute limits. Sarah studied the schedule with the calm attention of someone reviewing a grocery list rather than a series of tests that could end military careers. Her lack of visible nervousness stood in stark contrast to the nervous energy radiating from other pilots, many of whom were checking and rechecking their equipment, reviewing tactical manuals, or engaging in the kind of pre-combat rituals that helped manage stress in high-stakes situations. The registration building's interior reflected the same functional elegance as its exterior. Walls lined with photographs of distinguished graduates, display cases containing models of aircraft that had made history, tactical maps showing global deployment patterns of American air assets. Everything designed to remind visitors that they were part of something larger than individual ambition. They were guardians of American air superiority. Behind the registration desk sat Technical Sergeant Maria Santos, a veteran administrator whose demeanor suggested she had processed thousands of pilot applications over her career. Her eyes held the kind of professional skepticism that came from years of watching confident pilots fail to live up to their own hype. She had seen the rise and fall of careers, witnessed the gap between reputation and reality that separated true excellence from mere competence. Sarah approached the desk with the same unhurried pace she had maintained since entering the facility. Her movements suggested someone comfortable with military bureaucracy, familiar with the protocols and procedures that governed every aspect of military life. She carried herself with quiet confidence that neither demanded attention nor shied away from scrutiny. The registration process itself was deceptively simple. Name, rank, call sign, unit designation, security clearance level. Standard information that revealed nothing about actual capability or combat experience. Sarah provided each piece of information with military precision, her voice steady and professional, giving no indication of nervousness or uncertainty. When Sergeant Santos reached the line for call sign verification, she paused for just a moment. Her eyes flickered to Sarah's shoulder patch, then back to the form, then to Sarah's face. The pause lasted only seconds, but it carried the weight of professional assessment. In that brief moment, Santos was evaluating whether the woman before her matched the expectations typically associated with elite military aviation. The doubt in Santos's expression was subtle but unmistakable. She had processed applications from pilots whose call signs radiated aggression and competence. Death's Head, Lightning Strike, Iron Eagle, names that promised devastating effectiveness in combat situations. Sparrow didn't fit the pattern of nomenclature associated with elite fighter pilots. Sarah noticed the hesitation but offered no explanation or justification for her call sign. Her silence spoke to a confidence that didn't require external validation. She stood patiently while Santos completed the paperwork, her posture relaxed but alert, like someone accustomed to being underestimated and comfortable with that dynamic. The morning sun continued its relentless climb toward its zenith as more pilots arrived for registration. The facility's parking areas filled with vehicles ranging from practical military-issued sedans to exotic sports cars that reflected the diverse backgrounds of America's elite aviation community. Some pilots came from multi-generational military families. Others had earned their way up from enlisted ranks through exceptional performance. A few were former civilians whose flying abilities had attracted military recruitment. Despite their varied backgrounds, they shared common characteristics: exceptional hand-eye coordination, the ability to process information at superhuman speed, the psychological makeup necessary to remain calm while controlling machines capable of traveling at twice the speed of sound. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The moral framework required to use lethal force in service of national objectives. These pilots represented the end result of the most sophisticated training programs in human history. Years of flight school, months of specialized combat training, countless hours in simulators that replicated every conceivable combat scenario. Psychological evaluation designed to identify individuals capable of making life or death decisions under extreme stress. The investment in each pilot's training exceeded the cost of the aircraft they flew. Sarah completed her registration and received her schedule for the day's activities. First would be equipment checks and aircraft familiarization. Then preliminary simulations designed to verify basic competency. Finally, the main event, head-to-head competition against other pilots in scenarios that would test every aspect of their training and experience. As she left the registration building, Sarah caught her first glimpse of the simulation complex that would determine her fate over the next several hours. The building's exterior gave no hint of the technological marvels contained within. Advanced computer systems capable of creating virtual combat environments indistinguishable from reality. Motion platforms that replicated the physical sensations of high-G maneuvers. Visual displays with resolution exceeding human perception. Audio systems that reproduced every sound from engine noise to missile warnings with perfect fidelity. These simulators weren't games or training aids. They were glimpses into possible futures where the stakes would be measured in human lives rather than points or rankings. Every scenario had been developed based on analysis of actual combat situations. Every variable had been calibrated to match real-world conditions. Success in these simulations correlated strongly with survival in actual combat. The pilots gathering around the simulation complex represented America's investment in maintaining air superiority over any potential adversary. Their training costs exceeded the gross domestic product of small nations. Their equipment represented the cutting edge of human technological achievement. Their mission protecting American interests in an increasingly dangerous world required capabilities that pushed the boundaries of human performance. Sarah surveyed this scene with the calm assessment of someone accustomed to high-stakes environments. Her expression revealed nothing about her thoughts or expectations for the day ahead. She stood at the edge of a gathering storm that would test everything she had learned, everything she had trained for, everything she had become through years of service that remained hidden from public view. The morning air carried the familiar sense of jet fuel and hydraulic fluid that characterized any serious aviation facility. These were the perfumes of American air power, the chemical signatures of machines designed to project force across continents and oceans. For the pilots gathering at Fort Harrison, these scents represented home in a way that civilian observers could never understand. As Sarah began walking toward the equipment building for her first scheduled activity, she passed clusters of pilots, engaged in the kind of professional assessment that preceded any competitive event. Eyes measuring posture, analyzing equipment, evaluating potential threats and advantages. In this environment, every pilot was simultaneously a colleague and a competitor, bound together by shared mission, but separated by individual ambition. The day ahead would reveal who belonged in this rarefied atmosphere and who had simply reached the limits of their capability. For some pilots, the trials would confirm their elite status and open doors to even more prestigious assignments. For others, the experience would provide a humbling reminder that confidence and competence weren't always equivalent. Sarah's quiet presence moved through this competitive landscape like a stone thrown into still water, creating ripples that would soon become waves capable of transforming everything in their path. The transformation had already begun, though. None of the confident pilots surrounding her could yet imagine how dramatically their assumptions about excellence were about to be challenged. The equipment building hummed with mechanical precision as Sarah entered its climate-controlled interior. Rows of flight suits hung like empty shells waiting to be inhabited by pilots who would push them to their operational limits. Advanced helmet systems lined glass cases, their heads-up display technology representing millions of dollars in research and development designed to give American pilots every possible advantage in aerial combat. Technical specialist Robert Kim looked up from his checklist as Sarah approached the counter. His expression carried the professional courtesy of someone who had outfitted thousands of pilots over his 15-year career at Fort Harrison. Kim had developed an eye for reading pilots before they spoke their first word. Posture revealed confidence levels. Eye movement indicated stress patterns. Equipment preferences suggested combat experience. Sarah's approach registered as unusual to Kim's experienced assessment. Most pilots entering the equipment area displayed visible excitement or nervousness appropriate to the magnitude of the day's trials. They asked questions about gear specifications, requested specific helmet configurations, or engaged in nervous conversation about upcoming challenges. Sarah simply presented her assignment sheet and waited for Kim's professional guidance. Kim pulled Sarah's file from the digital system, his screen displaying the standard information available to equipment personnel. Military occupational specialty. Current assignment, security clearance level, equipment preferences from previous training events. The file appeared unremarkable except for one detail that caught Kim's attention. Sarah's equipment request list was unusually specific for someone with her apparent experience level. Most pilots requested standard gear packages suitable for general simulation work. Sarah's list specified advanced targeting systems typically used only by pilots with extensive combat experience. Night vision integration packages usually reserved for special operations personnel. Communication encryption modules that suggested familiarity with classified mission protocols. Her equipment preferences painted a picture that didn't match her modest call sign or unassuming demeanor. Kim processed the requests without comment, his professional training overriding personal curiosity about the disconnect between Sarah's appearance and her sophisticated equipment needs. He had learned through years of experience that military personnel often carried responsibilities that weren't immediately apparent to outside observers. Classification levels prevented full information sharing, even within military communities. The flight suit Sarah received fit her frame with the precision that came from detailed biometric measurements taken during her initial military processing years earlier. Every piece of equipment had been calibrated to her specific physical characteristics and operational requirements. The oxygen system adjusted automatically to her lung capacity. The G-suit positioned itself according to her height and weight distribution. Even the helmet's communication system had been tuned to her voice frequency patterns. As Sarah completed her equipment check, Kim noticed details that suggested extensive familiarity with advanced aviation gear. Her equipment inspection followed protocols typically used by pilots with significant combat experience. She tested communication systems using frequency patterns that indicated knowledge of classified operational procedures. Her helmet adjustment routine demonstrated muscle memory developed through countless real-world missions. The equipment building's atmosphere reflected the serious nature of the day's activities. Unlike civilian aviation facilities where safety equipment served primarily defensive purposes, military gear was designed for environments where survival depended on offensive capabilities as much as protective measures. Every piece of equipment carried the potential for life or death decisions measured in fractions of seconds. Sarah's equipment package included targeting systems, capable of guiding weapons with precision measured in inches at distances exceeding 20 miles. Navigation computers that could plot courses through hostile territory while avoiding enemy detection systems. Communication gear that maintained secure contact with command structures, even when operating beyond friendly territory. Each component represented years of technological development designed to give American pilots decisive advantages over any potential adversary. Other pilots filtering through the equipment area displayed the range of personalities typical of elite military aviation. Some approached their gear with reverent attention to detail, treating each component as a sacred tool of their profession. Others handled equipment with casual competence that spoke to years of experience in high-stakes environments. A few showed nervous energy that suggested this was their first exposure to evaluation at Fort Harrison's demanding standards. Captain Derek Hammer Morrison emerged from the equipment area wearing gear that seemed to enhance his already imposing physical presence. Morrison's call sign reflected his approach to aerial combat: direct, powerful, overwhelming. His reputation among fellow pilots centered on his ability to dominate opponents through superior firepower and aggressive tactics that left little room for enemy response. Morrison noticed Sarah completing her equipment check with what appeared to be excessive attention to systems that most pilots treated as routine. Her methodical approach struck him as the behavior of someone unfamiliar with advanced military aviation equipment. He approached with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to being the most experienced pilot in any gathering. Morrison's voice carried across the equipment area with the authority of someone whose opinions typically went unchallenged. His assessment of Sarah's gear selection revealed assumptions about her experience level that would have been accurate for most pilots with similar call signs. Morrison had never encountered a situation where outward appearances provided misleading information about actual capability. The interaction between Morrison and Sarah played out according to patterns familiar to anyone who had spent time in competitive military environments. Established personnel testing newcomers through casual conversation designed to reveal experience levels and potential threats to existing hierarchies. Sarah's responses provided no useful information about her background while avoiding the kind of defensive reactions that might have escalated the situation. Morrison's equipment preferences reflected his aggressive flying style. Maximum thrust capability, enhanced weapons targeting systems, communication gear configured for coordination with ground support units. His gear selection painted a picture of someone who approached aerial combat as a hammer approaches nails, with overwhelming force applied until resistance ceased. Sarah's equipment told a different story to anyone capable of reading the subtle indicators. Stealth-enhanced communication. Systems designed for operations requiring minimal electronic signatures. Navigation gear configured for independent operation without external support. Targeting systems optimized for precision rather than firepower. Her equipment suggested someone who approached combat as a surgeon approached anatomy, with precise application of force to achieve specific objectives. The equipment building security systems tracked every piece of gear issued to each pilot, creating detailed records that would be analyzed after the day's events concluded. Equipment performance data would be correlated with pilot performance. Metrics to identify optimal configurations for different mission types. Even seemingly routine equipment selections contributed to ongoing research designed to enhance American military capabilities. Technical Specialist Kim completed Sarah's equipment issue with the same professional efficiency he applied to every pilot. His personal curiosity about the disconnect between her appearance and equipment requirements remained professionally suppressed. Kim had learned that military aviation attracted individuals whose capabilities often exceeded initial impressions. Though he had rarely encountered someone whose gear selection suggested such extensive specialized experience. The morning sun continued its relentless advance as pilots completed their equipment preparation and moved toward the next phase of evaluation. The facility's scheduling system displayed real-time updates showing each pilot's progress through mandatory preparation activities. Every delay or acceleration in the process was monitored by personnel whose job was ensuring that evaluation proceeded according to strict timelines designed to simulate operational pressure. Sarah emerged from the equipment building wearing gear that transformed her appearance from modest military officer to serious aviation professional. The equipment's advanced technology was barely visible to casual observation, but its presence changed her entire demeanor. She moved with the confidence of someone comfortable with gear that represented the pinnacle of military aviation technology. The path from equipment issue to simulator preparation took pilots through areas designed to build psychological pressure before actual evaluation began. Display cases containing aircraft models used in famous combat operations. Photographs of pilots who had distinguished themselves in actual warfare. Statistical displays showing success rates for various training programs and their correlation with combat effectiveness. These displays served multiple purposes beyond mere decoration. They reminded pilots that their performance had direct relevance to ongoing military operations worldwide. They established context for understanding how training results translated into real-world capabilities. Most importantly, they created psychological pressure that separated pilots capable of performing under stress from those whose abilities deteriorated when stakes increased. Sarah passed through these displays with the same measured pace she had maintained since entering Fort Harrison. Her equipment-enhanced presence attracted more attention from other pilots, though her demeanor remained unchanged. She neither sought interaction nor avoided it, maintaining the neutral professionalism that characterized her approach to every aspect of the day's activities. The simulator building loomed ahead like a technological cathedral dedicated to the art of aerial warfare. Its exterior revealed nothing about the computational power housed within its walls. Supercomputers capable of calculating flight dynamics with precision exceeding reality. graphics processing units that rendered virtual environments indistinguishable from actual combat zones, motion systems that reproduced every physical sensation associated with high-performance aircraft operation, pre-simulation briefing areas, buzzed with nervous energy as pilots reviewed tactical manuals and discussed strategy for upcoming evaluations. These conversations revealed the competitive dynamics that characterized elite military aviation. Pilots shared information that might help colleagues while withholding insights that could provide personal advantages. Professional courtesy balanced against individual ambition in ways that reflected the complex social dynamics of military communities. Lieutenant Jennifer Phoenix Walsh occupied a corner table, where she reviewed technical specifications for aircraft systems that would be featured in the day's simulations. Phoenix had earned her call sign through demonstrated ability to recover from situations that would have ended other pilots' careers. Her reputation centered on resilience and adaptability that made her particularly effective in unpredictable combat environments. Phoenix noticed Sarah's entry into the briefing area with interest that reflected professional curiosity rather than competitive assessment. Phoenix had enough confidence in her own abilities to appreciate competence in others without feeling threatened. She recognized something in Sarah's demeanor that suggested capabilities not immediately apparent to casual observation. The conversation that developed between Phoenix and Sarah revealed the kind of professional respect that occasionally emerged between pilots, whose approaches to aviation complemented rather than competed with each other. Phoenix's straightforward personality created space for Sarah to demonstrate knowledge without appearing boastful or defensive. Their discussion covered technical aspects of aircraft performance, tactical considerations for different combat scenarios, and strategic thinking about simulation design intended to test specific pilot capabilities. Sarah's contributions revealed familiarity with advanced concepts that surprised Phoenix, given her unassuming call sign and modest reputation among Fort Harrison personnel. Phoenix had extensive experience reading people whose capabilities exceeded their public profiles. Military communities often contained individuals whose most significant accomplishments remained classified for national security reasons. She recognized patterns in Sarah's knowledge that suggested exposure to operational information, typically available only to pilots with extensive real-world combat experience. The briefing area's atmosphere shifted as Colonel Thompson made his entrance. Thompson's presence commanded immediate attention from every pilot present. Conversations paused as personnel acknowledged his arrival with the automatic respect due to someone whose achievements had become legendary throughout military aviation communities. Thompson's confident stride across the room demonstrated comfort with being the center of attention in any professional gathering. Thompson's approach to pre-simulation preparation reflected his systematic methodology for maintaining peak performance over 2 decades of competition. He reviewed specific technical details for aircraft systems, analyzed historical data about simulation scenarios, and engaged in tactical discussions with pilots whose experience complemented his own knowledge base. Every aspect of Thompson's preparation demonstrated the thorough professionalism that had sustained his unprecedented winning streak. The colonel's attention was captured by reports of an unusual pilot, whose equipment selections and technical knowledge seemed inconsistent with her modest reputation. Thompson's competitive instincts were finely tuned to identify potential threats to his dominance, and Sarah's profile contained enough anomalies to warrant his personal attention. Thompson's assessment of Sarah began with visual observation, designed to identify physical characteristics that might indicate superior piloting ability. Hand-eye coordination could be evaluated through subtle movement patterns. Stress tolerance was revealed through behavioral indicators under pressure. Confidence levels became apparent through posture and verbal communication patterns. Sarah's behavior during Thompson's observation provided minimal useful information for his competitive analysis. Her responses to his indirect questioning revealed technical knowledge appropriate for her rank and assignment without suggesting exceptional capability. Her demeanor remained professionally neutral, regardless of social pressure or conversational challenges. Thompson's frustration with his inability to assess Sarah's true capability reflected his systematic approach to competition that had sustained his success over 20 years. He had developed expertise in reading opponents that allowed him to adjust his performance according to the level of challenge they represented. Sarah's inscrutability prevented him from calibrating his approach appropriately. The morning's final preparation phase involved individual pilot briefings where detailed mission parameters were provided for the day's simulation scenarios. These briefings revealed the sophistication of evaluation methods used at Fort Harrison to assess pilot capability across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Each simulation scenario tested specific combinations of flying skill, tactical thinking, decision-making under pressure, and adaptability to changing conditions. The scenarios were designed by combat veterans whose real-world experience ensured that simulated challenges accurately reflected actual combat requirements. Success in simulation correlated strongly with effectiveness in operational environments. Sarah received her briefing materials with the same professional attention she had applied to every other aspect of the day's preparation. Her questions during the briefing session revealed systematic thinking about tactical challenges without providing information about her actual experience level. She absorbed information efficiently while contributing minimal details about her own background or capabilities. The briefing officer noted Sarah's sophisticated questions and professional demeanor in the evaluation file that would become part of her permanent record. These seemingly minor details contributed to ongoing assessment processes that continued throughout pilots' entire careers. Every interaction provided data points that influenced future assignment decisions and career development opportunities. As morning preparation activities concluded, pilots began moving towards simulator assignments that would determine their standings in Fort Harrison's competitive hierarchy. The transition from preparation to evaluation marked a psychological shift from theoretical knowledge to practical demonstration. Everything that had come before was preliminary to the moment when individual capability would be tested against objective standards that had been refined through decades of experience. Sarah's approach to this transition reflected the same measured confidence she had displayed throughout the morning. Her equipment was properly configured, her knowledge was current, her physical preparation was complete. She moved toward her assigned simulator with the steady pace of someone comfortable with high-stakes evaluation, though the true extent of her preparedness remained hidden from observers, who continued to underestimate her potential based on superficial appearances. The simulator complex's main floor stretched across an area larger than most aircraft hangars, housing 12 individual simulation pods arranged in a precise hexagonal pattern around a central observation deck. Each pod contained technology that represented decades of advancement in virtual reality systems, motion simulation, and combat scenario modeling. The combined computational power of the facility exceeded that of most national research institutions, all dedicated to creating training environments indistinguishable from actual combat conditions. Sarah approached Simulator Pod 7 with the deliberate pace that had characterized her movement throughout the morning. The pod's exterior resembled a metallic cocoon designed to completely isolate its occupant from external distractions while providing every sensory input necessary for realistic flight simulation. Advanced hydraulic systems could replicate G-forces up to 9 times normal gravity. Surround vision displays projected 3-dimensional environments with resolution exceeding human visual acuity. Haptic feedback systems transmitted tactile sensations through the pilot's equipment with precision measured in fractions of millimeters. Pod 7 held particular significance within Fort Harrison's competitive culture. Colonel Thompson had begun his legendary 20-year winning streak in this exact simulator, establishing a psychological connection between the equipment and his professional dominance. Many pilots specifically requested different pods when competing against Thompson, believing that Pod 7 provided him with some intangible advantage beyond mere technological capability. Senior Master Sergeant Lisa Chang, the facility's lead simulation technician, conducted final systems checks as Sarah completed her pre-flight preparation routine. Chang had overseen thousands of simulation sessions during her 12-year tenure at Fort Harrison, developing an intuitive understanding of how pilot performance correlated with equipment, configuration, and scenario parameters. Her expertise in simulation technology was matched by her ability to read subtle indicators that revealed pilot stress levels and confidence patterns. Chang noticed immediately that Sarah's preparation routine differed significantly from typical pilot behavior. Most aviators entering Pod 7 displayed visible excitement or nervousness appropriate to the magnitude of the challenge they were about to face. They asked questions about system specifications, requested clarification about scenario parameters, or engaged in nervous conversation designed to manage pre-performance anxiety. Sarah's approach suggested familiarity with advanced simulation technology that exceeded her apparent experience level. Her equipment interface procedures followed protocols typically used by pilots with extensive simulation training. Her system configuration choices indicated knowledge of advanced features that many experienced pilots never discovered. Most significantly, her physiological indicators remained stable despite the competitive pressure that typically elevated stress hormones. In even veteran aviators, the observation deck filled with pilots, instructors, and evaluation personnel as word spread about the unusual pilot assigned to Pod 7. Competition between elite aviators typically attracted professional interest, but Sarah's mysterious background and unassuming demeanor had generated curiosity that exceeded normal levels. Her equipment selections and technical knowledge had created questions about her actual experience that could only be answered through demonstrated performance. Colonel Thompson positioned himself at the observation deck center console, where primary displays provided comprehensive real-time data about pilot performance metrics. Heart rate, stress hormone levels, reaction times, decision-making patterns, and tactical effectiveness were monitored continuously throughout simulation sessions. Thompson's expertise in interpreting these measurements had contributed to his competitive success by allowing him to adjust his performance based on opponent capabilities revealed through physiological indicators. Major Patricia Rivers, Fort Harrison's chief evaluation officer, initiated the formal briefing that preceded all competitive simulation sessions. Rivers had developed evaluation protocols that had been adopted by military training facilities worldwide, establishing Fort Harrison as the global standard for pilot assessment methodology. Her reputation for fairness combined with demanding standards had earned respect from pilots whose careers depended on her professional judgment. Rivers announced the scenario that would test both Sarah and her eventual competitor, Urban Combat Environment Sigma 7, a simulation based on actual combat operations conducted in hostile territory where American pilots had faced sophisticated enemy air defense systems. The scenario required pilots to navigate through dense urban terrain while avoiding surface-to-air missile installations, neutralize specific high-value targets, and extract safely despite enemy fighter aircraft attempting interception. Sigma 7 had been developed through analysis of classified combat operations where pilot performance had directly influenced mission success and casualty rates. Every enemy system behavior pattern was calibrated according to actual battlefield data. Environmental conditions replicated real-world operational challenges, including adverse weather, electronic jamming, and equipment malfunctions that occurred during actual combat missions. The scenario's difficulty level was legendary among Fort Harrison pilots. Success required not only exceptional flying ability, but also tactical innovation, strategic thinking, and adaptability to rapidly changing conditions. Many highly skilled pilots had achieved respectable performance in Sigma 7, but none had approached the level of tactical excellence that Colonel Thompson consistently demonstrated in this particular simulation. Sarah entered Pod 7 as technicians completed final system calibrations. The pod's interior resembled the cockpit of an F-22 Raptor down to the smallest detail, with every control, display, and system interface precisely replicated according to actual aircraft specifications. The pilot's seat adjusted automatically to Sarah's physical measurements, positioning her optimally for access to all flight controls, while maximizing comfort during extended high-G maneuvers. Shine initiated the startup sequence that brought Pod 7 systems online with the smooth precision of a real aircraft. Engine sounds filled the enclosed space with audio fidelity that included subtle harmonics and frequency variations that pilots learned to interpret as diagnostic indicators of aircraft performance. Visual displays activated to show a virtual cockpit environment indistinguishable from an actual F-22, except for the complete absence of physical danger. Sarah's hands moved across the control interfaces with fluid efficiency that suggested extensive experience with F-22 systems. Her pre-flight check followed procedures that exceeded standard requirements, testing backup systems and emergency protocols that many pilots never bothered to verify during simulation sessions. Her communication with ground control used terminology and protocols that indicated familiarity with actual combat operations rather than training exercises. The observation deck's atmosphere intensified as pilots recognized the sophistication of Sarah's preparation routine. Her systematic approach to equipment verification suggested someone who had learned through experience that equipment failures occurred at the worst possible moments during actual combat operations. Her attention to details that seemed irrelevant during simulation indicated understanding that training habits directly influenced performance during real emergencies. Thompson's analysis of Sarah's preparation routine revealed capabilities that contradicted his initial assessment of her as an inexperienced pilot likely to provide minimal competitive challenge. Her equipment interface procedures demonstrated muscle memory developed through extensive repetition. Her communication pattern suggested familiarity with operational protocols used during classified missions. Most concerning for Thompson's competitive confidence, her physiological indicators remained remarkably stable despite the pressure of performing before an audience of elite military aviators. Major Rivers initiated the simulation sequence that would transport Sarah from the safety of Fort Harrison to a virtual combat zone where split-second decisions determined mission success or catastrophic failure. The scenario began with Sarah's virtual F-22 positioned at 30,000 feet above hostile territory, with mission objectives that required her to penetrate sophisticated enemy air defenses and engage multiple targets while avoiding surface-to-air missiles and enemy fighter aircraft. Sarah's initial response to the simulation's commencement revealed tactical thinking that impressed even experienced observers. Rather than immediately proceeding toward primary objectives, according to conventional attack patterns, she spent several minutes analyzing enemy defensive positions and identifying weaknesses in their coverage patterns. Her approach suggested understanding that successful combat operations required intelligence gathering and tactical planning rather than aggressive advancement toward targets. The virtual environment responded to Sarah's aircraft with a sophisticated realism that made Fort Harrison simulations effective training tools. Enemy radar systems tracked her movement patterns and adjusted their coverage accordingly. Surface-to-air missile installations activated targeting sequences when her aircraft entered their engagement envelopes. Fighter aircraft began convergence, maneuvers designed to intercept her before she could reach primary mission objectives. Sarah's response to these threats demonstrated tactical innovation that exceeded standard training protocols. She used terrain features to mask her radar signature in ways that weren't included in conventional pilot training curricula. Her flight path optimization reduced fuel consumption while maintaining tactical advantages that suggested understanding of advanced combat techniques typically known only to pilots with extensive operational experience. Thompson's competitive analysis became increasingly focused as he recognized that Sarah's performance exceeded his initial expectations by substantial margins. Her tactical decisions reflected strategic thinking that he associated with pilots whose experience had been developed through actual combat rather than simulation training. Her equipment utilization demonstrated familiarity with advanced F-22 capabilities that many experienced pilots never mastered despite years of training. The observation deck's attention became completely focused on Sarah's performance as her virtual aircraft began engaging enemy targets with precision that bordered on supernatural. Her weapons targeting procedures followed protocols that maximized effectiveness while minimizing ammunition consumption. Her defensive maneuvers against incoming missiles demonstrated understanding of physics principles that allowed her to exploit enemy weapon system limitations. Chang monitored Sarah's physiological indicators with growing amazement as the simulation progressed through increasingly challenging phases. Most pilots experienced elevated stress responses as mission complexity increased and enemy pressure intensified. Sarah's heart rate, blood pressure, and stress hormone levels remained within normal ranges, despite tactical situations that typically triggered fight-or-flight responses in even experienced combat veterans. Sarah's approach to the simulation's most challenging phase revealed capabilities that fundamentally altered observers' understanding of her actual experience level. When enemy fighter aircraft began coordinated attacks designed to overwhelm defensive capabilities, she responded with maneuvers that weren't included in any standard training manual. Her tactical innovations suggested exposure to combat techniques developed through classified research programs or actual operational experience that exceeded anything available through conventional military training. The virtual environments. Enemy artificial intelligence systems had been programmed with tactical knowledge derived from analysis of actual enemy pilot behavior patterns observed during real combat operations. These systems adapted their attack strategies based on pilot response patterns, ensuring that simulations remained challenging even for highly experienced aviators. Sarah's performance forced the artificial intelligence to implement its most sophisticated tactical responses, creating a virtual combat environment of unprecedented complexity. Thompson's growing concern about Sarah's unexpected capability was reflected in his increasingly intense analysis of her performance metrics. Every tactical decision she made demonstrated understanding of combat principles that he had developed through 2 decades of competitive simulation experience. Her innovation in adapting to changing tactical situations exceeded anything he had observed from pilots with established reputations for exceptional capability. Sarah's completion of the simulation's primary objectives occurred with efficiency that exceeded Fort Harrison's historical performance records. Her mission success metrics indicated achievement of tactical goals with minimal resource expenditure and no significant damage to her virtual aircraft. Most importantly, her tactical innovations had identified weaknesses in enemy defensive systems that could have strategic implications for actual combat operations. The simulation concluded with Sarah's virtual aircraft safely returned to friendly territory despite having engaged multiple enemy systems that had collectively represented the most sophisticated air defense network that American pilots might face in actual combat operations. Her performance had demonstrated mastery of advanced combat techniques while revealing tactical innovations that exceeded existing training protocols. Chang's analysis of performance data revealed numbers that challenged existing understanding of human capability in high-stress combat simulation environments. Sarah's reaction times, decision-making efficiency, and tactical innovation metrics exceeded previous records by margins that suggested either equipment malfunction or pilot capabilities that hadn't been previously documented at Fort Harrison. Thompson's competitive confidence was fundamentally shaken by observing performance that exceeded his own capabilities in measurable ways. Sarah's tactical innovations had revealed approaches to combat challenges that he hadn't considered despite 20 years of intensive study and practical application of aerial warfare principles. Her efficiency in achieving mission objectives suggested experience level that contradicted everything he thought he knew about her background and training. Major Rivers reviewed preliminary performance data with the systematic attention to detail that characterized her approach to pilot evaluation. The numbers indicated achievement levels that required verification through additional testing before they could be accepted as accurate measurements of actual capability. Sarah's performance suggested either exceptional natural talent or extensive experience that hadn't been reflected in her official personnel records. The observation deck buzzed with quiet conversation as pilots attempted to process what they had witnessed. Sarah's performance had challenged fundamental assumptions about the relationship between pilot experience, call sign significance, and actual combat capability. Her demonstration of advanced tactical knowledge raised questions about military training programs and their effectiveness in identifying exceptional talent. Sarah emerged from Pod 7 with the same professional composure she had maintained throughout the day's activities. Her physiological recovery from the high-stress simulation environment occurred more rapidly than typical pilot response patterns, suggesting either exceptional stress tolerance or familiarity with similar operational environments that had developed her capacity for managing extreme psychological pressure. The post-simulation debriefing revealed additional details about Sarah's performance that hadn't been apparent during real-time observation. Her tactical decisions had consistently optimized mission effectiveness while minimizing operational risks in ways that suggested strategic thinking developed through extensive practical experience. Her innovation in exploiting enemy system vulnerabilities indicated understanding of operational intelligence that exceeded information typically available to pilots at her rank level. Thompson's analysis of his competitive position required fundamental reassessment based on Sarah's demonstrated capabilities. His 20-year dominance had been built on assumption that his combination of experience, training, and natural talent provided decisive advantages over any potential challenger. Sarah's performance suggested the existence of capabilities that he hadn't previously encountered despite 2 decades of competition against elite military aviators. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Fort Harrison as evaluation personnel prepared for the day's climactic competition between Sarah and Colonel Thompson. What had begun as routine testing of an unknown pilot's capabilities had evolved into a challenge that would test the limits of everything both competitors had learned about aerial combat and tactical innovation. The announcement echoed through Fort Harrison's intercom system with the gravity of a presidential address, summoning personnel from across the facility to witness what would become the most significant competitive simulation in the base's history. Colonel Marcus Thompson versus Captain Sarah Chen, official record holder against complete unknown, 20 years of dominance about to face its ultimate test. The main simulation arena filled beyond capacity as word spread through military aviation. NETWORKs that something extraordinary was about to unfold. General Patricia Hayes arrived via helicopter just as the formal challenge preparations began. Hayes commanded the Air Force's combat training division and had personally overseen the development of evaluation protocols used throughout the military aviation community. Her unexpected presence elevated the event's significance from routine competition to potential career-defining moment for everyone involved. Hayes positioned herself at the arena's command center where comprehensive monitoring systems would provide complete data analysis of both pilots' performance. The arena itself represented the pinnacle of simulation technology, featuring dual pods positioned to allow direct competitive comparison while maintaining complete isolation between participants. Advanced monitoring systems tracked every physiological indicator, every decision pattern, every tactical choice made by competing pilots. The facility's supercomputers processed millions of calculations per second to ensure that virtual environments responded with absolute realism to pilot inputs. Colonel Thompson entered the arena to thunderous applause from assembled personnel whose careers had been influenced by his legendary achievements. 20 years of unbroken victories had established Thompson as the gold standard for military aviation excellence. His record of 847 consecutive wins represented more than statistical achievement. It symbolized American air superiority and the training methods that maintained global military dominance. Thompson's pre-competition preparation followed rituals refined through 2 decades of successful performance. He reviewed technical specifications for aircraft systems, analyzed historical data about scenario parameters, and engaged in psychological preparation techniques that maintained optimal stress levels for peak performance. Every aspect of his routine had been calibrated to sustain the mental clarity and physical coordination necessary for sustained excellence under extreme pressure. Sarah's entrance into the arena created a stark contrast to Thompson's triumphant reception. Scattered applause mixed with whispered conversations as personnel attempted to reconcile her modest appearance with the exceptional performance she had demonstrated during preliminary testing. Her calm demeanor revealed no indication of nervousness or intimidation, despite facing the most accomplished simulation pilot in military aviation history. Major Rivers announced the competition parameters with the solemnity befitting an event that would be analyzed and discussed throughout military aviation communities for years to come. The selected scenario was Advanced Tactical Environment Delta IX, a simulation based on classified combat operations where American pilots had faced the most sophisticated enemy air defense systems ever encountered in actual warfare. Delta IX represented the absolute pinnacle of simulation complexity, featuring enemy systems that adapted their tactics in real time based on pilot behavior patterns. The scenario included multiple phases requiring different tactical approaches, environmental challenges that tested equipment limits, and strategic objectives that demanded innovative thinking beyond conventional training protocols. Success required not only exceptional flying ability, but also tactical genius and adaptability to rapidly changing conditions. The scenario's development had required analysis of classified combat data spanning multiple decades of American military operations. Enemy artificial intelligence systems incorporated tactical knowledge derived from studying actual adversary pilot behavior, surface-to-air missile deployment patterns, and electronic warfare techniques observed during real combat encounters. The simulation represented the most comprehensive test of pilot capability ever developed. Thompson's confidence remained unshaken despite Sarah's impressive preliminary performance. His 2 decades of experience had provided exposure to every tactical challenge that military aviation could present. He had faced scenarios designed by the world's leading combat experts, competed against pilots whose skills had been proven in actual warfare, and consistently demonstrated superiority through systematic application of advanced tactical principles. The competition format required both pilots to complete identical mission parameters within the same virtual environment, with performance measured through comprehensive metrics that evaluated tactical effectiveness, resource efficiency, mission completion time, and innovative problem-solving approaches. Real-time comparison would reveal definitively which pilot possessed superior capability across all dimensions of aerial combat proficiency. Sarah approached her assigned simulation pod with the measured confidence that had characterized her behavior throughout the day's activities. Her equipment preparation followed the same methodical routine she had used during preliminary testing, checking systems and configurations with attention to detail that suggested understanding of equipment reliability's critical importance during high-stakes operations. Thompson entered his pod amid enthusiastic encouragement from personnel whose respect for his achievements bordered on reverence. His preparation routine demonstrated the systematic approach that had sustained his success. Through 20 years of competition, every control verification, every system check, every equipment adjustment reflected experience accumulated through countless hours of simulation training and actual combat operations. General Hayes activated the monitoring systems that would provide comprehensive analysis of both pilots' performance throughout the competition. Heart rate variability, stress hormone levels, reaction times, decision-making patterns, and tactical innovation metrics would be tracked continuously, creating detailed profiles that revealed how each pilot responded to increasing operational pressure. The simulation environment materialized around both pilots with stunning realism that made distinguishing virtual from actual combat impossible without conscious effort. Their F-22 aircraft began the scenario positioned at 40,000 feet above hostile territory that featured the most sophisticated air defense network ever constructed in simulation environments. Enemy systems included advanced radar installations, mobile surface-to-air missile platforms, electronic jamming equipment, and fighter aircraft flown by artificial intelligence, programmed with tactical knowledge derived from actual enemy pilot behavior patterns. Mission objectives required penetration of enemy airspace to neutralize multiple, high-value targets while avoiding detection by surveillance systems that adapted their search patterns based on pilot movement. Secondary objectives included gathering intelligence about enemy defensive capabilities and safely extracting despite coordinated efforts by enemy forces to prevent mission completion. Thompson's initial approach reflected conventional tactical doctrine refined through decades of successful application. He systematically analyzed enemy defensive positions, identified optimal penetration routes, and began methodical advancement toward primary objectives. His movements demonstrated textbook execution of advanced combat techniques that had proven effective throughout his competitive career. Sarah's tactical approach revealed innovative thinking that immediately distinguished her methodology from conventional combat doctrine. Rather than following established penetration patterns, she spent initial minutes conducting sophisticated analysis of enemy system integration, identifying weaknesses in defensive coordination that weren't apparent. Through standard reconnaissance techniques, her approach suggested understanding of system vulnerabilities that exceeded information typically available through conventional intelligence gathering. The virtual environment responded to both pilots' presence with the sophisticated realism that made Fort Harrison simulations effective training tools for actual combat operations. Enemy radar systems tracked aircraft movement patterns and adjusted coverage accordingly. Surface-to-air missile installations activated targeting sequences. When aircraft entered engagement envelopes, fighter aircraft began convergence maneuvers designed to intercept intruders before they could reach critical mission objectives. Thompson's response to enemy defensive measures demonstrated the tactical excellence that had sustained his legendary record. His countermeasures against surface-to-air missiles followed advanced techniques that maximize survival probability while maintaining mission effectiveness. His electronic warfare procedures neutralized enemy jamming attempts while preserving his aircraft stealth capabilities. His fighter engagement tactics exploited F-22 performance advantages to eliminate threats with minimal ammunition expenditure. Sarah's tactical responses revealed capabilities that fundamentally challenged observers' understanding of pilot training and natural ability. Her countermeasures against enemy systems utilized techniques that weren't included in standard military training curricula. Her electronic warfare approach demonstrated familiarity with classified capabilities that suggested exposure to operational information typically restricted to pilots with top-secret clearances and specialized mission experience. General Hayes monitored performance data with growing amazement as both pilots progressed through increasingly challenging scenario phases. Thompson's metrics reflected the exceptional capability that had established his reputation with stress management, reaction times, and tactical decision-making, all indicating peak professional performance. Sarah's indicators revealed something unprecedented: physiological stability and tactical innovation that exceeded previous measurements recorded at any military training facility. The simulation's complexity increased exponentially as both pilots penetrated deeper into enemy territory. Adaptive artificial intelligence systems implemented increasingly sophisticated countermeasures designed to test pilot capability beyond normal operational requirements. Enemy fighter aircraft employed coordinated attack patterns that required split-second decision-making and tactical innovation to survive. Surface-to-air missile systems activated targeting protocols that pushed defensive countermeasures to their absolute limits. Thompson's management of escalating tactical challenges demonstrated why his record had remained unbroken for 2 decades. His systematic approach to threat prioritization ensured optimal resource allocation under extreme pressure. His defensive maneuvers against coordinated enemy attacks exploited every advantage provided by F-22 performance characteristics. His weapons employment achieved maximum tactical effectiveness while conserving ammunition for subsequent engagement phases. Sarah's response to the simulation's most demanding challenges revealed tactical genius that redefined observers' understanding of human capability under extreme stress. Her defensive innovations against coordinated enemy attacks utilized aircraft performance characteristics in ways that exceeded manufacturer specifications and training manual recommendations. Her offensive tactics achieved mission objectives with efficiency that suggested either supernatural ability or extensive experience. With combat techniques that remained classified at the highest levels of military secrecy, the observation deck fell silent as both pilots approached the simulation's climactic phase, where mission completion required simultaneous engagement of multiple enemy systems while avoiding detection by reinforcement units converging on their position. The tactical complexity exceeded anything previously attempted in competitive simulation, demanding innovation and adaptability that pushed human performance to its absolute limits. Thompson's approach to the final phase demonstrated accumulated wisdom from 20 years of tactical excellence. His systematic elimination of enemy threats followed proven methodologies that maximized survival probability while ensuring mission objective completion. His coordination of offensive and defensive operations reflected strategic thinking that had been refined through countless hours of simulation, training, and practical application during actual combat missions. Sarah's tactical approach to the simulation's culmination revealed capabilities that transcended conventional understanding of pilot training and natural ability. Her simultaneous management of multiple threat streams demonstrated situational awareness that seemed almost supernatural. Her innovative exploitation of enemy system limitations suggested understanding of classified technical specifications that weren't included in standard intelligence briefings available to pilots at her rank level. The virtual environment's final challenge required both pilots to navigate through coordinated attacks by multiple enemy fighter squadrons while completing time-sensitive mission objectives that determined overall scenario success. Enemy artificial intelligence systems implemented their most sophisticated tactical responses, creating virtual combat environments that exceeded the complexity of most actual warfare situations. Thompson's performance during the final phase reflected every lesson learned through his legendary career. His tactical decisions demonstrated strategic thinking that had been proven effective through decades of competitive success. His execution of complex maneuvers under extreme pressure showed why he had remained undefeated despite challenges from the military aviation community's most accomplished pilots. Sarah's completion of the simulation's ultimate challenge revealed mastery that redefined excellence in military aviation simulation. Her tactical innovations during the most demanding phase exceeded performance metrics that had been considered theoretical limits of human capability. Her achievement of all mission objectives, while maintaining aircraft integrity and crew safety, demonstrated competency that suggested training and experience far beyond anything reflected in her official personnel records. The simulation concluded with both pilots having completed their mission objectives, but performance analysis revealed differences that would reshape understanding of pilot capability and competitive excellence. Thompson's achievement maintained his reputation for tactical proficiency while demonstrating why his record had remained unbroken for 20 years. Sarah's performance established new benchmarks for simulation excellence that would require fundamental revision of evaluation protocols and training methodologies. General Hayes reviewed preliminary performance data with the systematic attention that characterized her approach to pilot evaluation. The numbers indicated achievement levels that challenged existing understanding of human performance limits in high-stress combat environments. Comprehensive analysis would require detailed study by evaluation specialists and combat training experts to fully understand the implications of what had been demonstrated. The arena remained silent as personnel processed what they had witnessed. 2 decades of assumptions about pilot excellence and competitive achievement had been challenged by performance that exceeded established understanding of capability limits. The implications extended far beyond individual competition to fundamental questions about training effectiveness and talent identification within military aviation communities. Sarah emerged from her simulation pod with the same professional composure she had maintained throughout the day's activities. Her physiological recovery from the high-stress combat environment occurred with remarkable speed, suggesting either exceptional stress tolerance or familiarity with operational pressures that had developed her capacity for managing extreme psychological demands. Thompson's exit from his pod reflected the confidence of someone whose performance had met his own demanding standards, despite facing unprecedented competition. His 2 decades of excellence had prepared him for challenging opponents, though. Sarah's capability had exceeded anything he had previously encountered in competitive simulation environments. The post-simulation atmosphere was charged with anticipation as evaluation personnel prepared to announce results that would determine whether Thompson's legendary record would survive its most serious challenge. 20 years of dominance faced measurement against performance that had redefined understanding of pilot capability and tactical excellence. The silence in the arena stretched like a taut wire as Major Rivers approached the central display console where performance metrics awaited revelation. 20 years of military aviation history hung in the balance, with Thompson's legendary dominance facing its ultimate test against capabilities that had defied every assumption about pilot excellence and tactical mastery. The assembled personnel understood they were witnessing a moment that would reshape competitive aviation for generations to come. General Hayes positioned herself at the primary evaluation station where comprehensive analysis systems had processed millions of data points, generated during the most complex simulation ever attempted at Fort Harrison. Her expression revealed nothing about the results that would either confirm Thompson's continued supremacy or establish a new paradigm for understanding pilot capability within military aviation communities. Rivers activated the main display systems that revealed performance metrics with the clinical precision that characterized all evaluation procedures at Fort Harrison. The numbers appeared in stark digital clarity, each measurement representing aspects of pilot performance that had been refined through decades of research into optimal combat effectiveness under extreme operational stress. Thompson's performance data reflected the exceptional capability that had sustained his legendary record through 20 years of competitive excellence. His tactical decision-making efficiency rated in the 98th percentile of all military aviators. His stress management indicators remained within optimal ranges despite operational pressures that typically degraded pilot performance. His mission completion metrics demonstrated systematic achievement of all primary and secondary objectives within acceptable timeframes and resource expenditure parameters. Sarah's performance data revealed numbers that challenged fundamental understanding of human capability in high-stress combat environments. Her tactical innovation index exceeded measurement scales that had been calibrated according to the best performance ever recorded at military training facilities worldwide. Her physiological stability under extreme pressure indicated stress tolerance that approached theoretical limits of human adaptation. Her mission completion efficiency achieved optimization levels that suggested either supernatural ability or training methodologies that remained classified at the highest levels of military secrecy. The critical measurement that would determine competitive outcome appeared on the central display with devastating clarity. Thompson's final score of 1,423 points represented exceptional achievement that would have established new records against any other competitor in Fort Harrison's history. Sarah's score of 2,176 points didn't just break Thompson's record. It obliterated existing understanding of what was possible in competitive military aviation simulation. General Hayes stepped forward to address the stunned assembly with the authority of someone whose career had been devoted to understanding and developing exceptional pilot capability. Her voice carried across the silent arena with measured precision that reflected the gravity of what had been demonstrated during the preceding competition. Hayes announced that the assembled personnel had witnessed more than competitive excellence. They had observed a paradigm shift that would require fundamental revision of pilot training methodologies and capability assessment protocols. Sarah's performance had revealed tactical approaches and innovation levels that exceeded existing training curricula, suggesting the existence of advanced techniques that hadn't been previously documented within standard military aviation communities. The general's revelation that Sarah's call sign, Sparrow, was not a random assignment but reflected participation in the most classified pilot development program in American military history transformed understanding of everything that had occurred. The Sparrow Initiative represented the pinnacle of advanced tactical training, identifying the top 1% of military aviators for specialized development that prepared them for missions that officially didn't exist within public military records. Hayes explained that Sarah's modest appearance and unassuming demeanor were deliberate operational security measures designed to protect personnel whose capabilities were considered national strategic assets. Her participation in routine competitive activities served dual purposes of maintaining operational readiness while providing opportunities for performance assessment under controlled conditions that wouldn't compromise mission security. The general's disclosure that Sarah had completed over 300 classified combat missions in hostile territories that weren't acknowledged in public military records explained the tactical innovations and stress tolerance that had been demonstrated during the competition. Her experience included operations behind enemy lines, where survival depended on capabilities that exceeded conventional military training by substantial margins. Thompson's response to these revelations reflected the professional dignity that had characterized his approach to competition throughout his legendary career. Rather than expressing disappointment about his record being broken, he acknowledged that he had been privileged to compete against someone whose achievements represented the absolute pinnacle of military aviation excellence. His gracious acceptance of defeat demonstrated why his reputation extended beyond mere competitive success to encompass professional character that inspired respect throughout military communities. Sarah's first public statement since arriving at Fort Harrison revealed the quiet confidence that had characterized her behavior throughout the day's activities. She expressed appreciation for the opportunity to compete against someone whose achievements had established standards for excellence that influenced pilot development throughout American military aviation. Her acknowledgement of Thompson's contributions to competitive simulation demonstrated the mutual respect that existed between professionals whose dedication had advanced military capabilities. The immediate consequences of Sarah's unprecedented performance extended far beyond individual recognition to systematic changes that would influence military aviation training for decades. General Hayes announced the establishment of new performance standards based on capabilities that Sarah had demonstrated, requiring revision of evaluation protocols at training facilities throughout the military aviation system. Sarah's tactical innovations during the competition were immediately classified for analysis by strategic planning divisions whose mission was developing countermeasures against potential enemy capabilities. Her approaches to complex combat scenarios provided insights that would influence aircraft design, pilot training curricula, and operational planning for future military engagements in increasingly sophisticated threat environments. The professional development opportunities that resulted from Sarah's demonstration of exceptional capability included assignment as Chief Instructor for Advanced Tactical Development at Fort Harrison. Her new position would involve designing training programs that incorporated innovative techniques she had developed through classified operational experience, ensuring that future generations of military aviators would benefit from knowledge that had been proven effective in actual combat situations. Thompson's career trajectory was enhanced rather than diminished by his performance against Sarah's unprecedented capability. His demonstration of excellence despite facing superior opposition earned recognition for professional character that would influence his future assignments and opportunities for contributing to military aviation development. His experience competing against exceptional talent provided insights that would benefit other pilots facing similar challenges. The transformation of Fort Harrison's competitive culture reflected broader changes in how military aviation communities would approach talent identification and development. Sarah's performance had demonstrated that exceptional capability could exist in forms that weren't immediately apparent through conventional assessment methods, requiring more sophisticated approaches to recognizing and nurturing strategic assets within military personnel systems. Major Rivers announced the establishment of new evaluation protocols that would incorporate lessons learned from Sarah's demonstration of capabilities that exceeded existing measurement systems. Her performance had revealed limitations in assessment methodologies that had been considered comprehensive, necessitating development of enhanced techniques for identifying personnel whose potential exceeded conventional expectations. The competitive simulation arena was transformed from a venue for individual achievement to a research laboratory where tactical innovations could be developed and tested under controlled conditions. Sarah's techniques would be analyzed, refined, and incorporated into training programs that would enhance capabilities of military aviators facing increasingly sophisticated operational challenges in future conflicts. Sarah's acceptance of her new role as chief instructor reflected her commitment to sharing knowledge that had been developed through classified operational experience. Her willingness to contribute to training programs that would benefit military aviation communities demonstrated the service orientation that characterized personnel whose achievements remained largely hidden from public recognition due to operational security requirements. The legacy of Thompson's 20-year record was preserved rather than diminished by Sarah's superior performance. His achievements had established standards that influenced an entire generation of military aviators, creating the competitive environment that had enabled Sarah's capabilities to be fully demonstrated. His contribution to military aviation excellence would be remembered as the foundation upon which future innovations were built. General Hayes concluded the historic event by announcing that Sarah's performance had established new benchmarks for understanding human potential in high-stress combat environments. Her demonstration of capabilities that exceeded theoretical limits would influence research into pilot development, aircraft design, and tactical planning for decades to come. The implications of Sarah's achievement extended beyond military aviation to broader questions about human performance optimization and talent development. Her demonstration that exceptional capability could exist in unassuming forms would influence recruitment and assessment practices throughout organizations whose mission required identification of personnel with extraordinary potential. The competitive dynamics at Fort Harrison were permanently altered by recognition that excellence could exist in forms that weren't immediately apparent through conventional observation. Sarah's performance had demonstrated that true capability was measured through achievement rather than appearance, requiring fundamental changes in how personnel were evaluated and developed throughout military aviation communities. Sarah's integration into Fort Harrison's training establishment marked the beginning of a new era in pilot development where innovative techniques would be systematically incorporated into curricula that had been refined through decades of operational experience. Her knowledge would benefit generations of military aviators whose capabilities would be enhanced through training methods that had been proven effective in actual combat environments. The transformation of competitive simulation from individual achievement to collaborative development reflected broader evolution in military training philosophy. Sarah's willingness to share tactical innovations represented the service orientation that characterized personnel whose primary motivation was enhancing collective capability rather than pursuing individual recognition. Thompson's continued involvement in training programs as senior advisor reflected recognition that his experience provided valuable context for understanding how exceptional capability could be developed and sustained throughout military careers. His mentorship would benefit pilots whose potential might not be immediately apparent through conventional assessment methods. The establishment of Sarah as chief instructor created opportunities for developing training programs that incorporated classified operational experience into curricula that would prepare military aviators for increasingly complex future challenges. Her knowledge would be systematically transferred to personnel whose capabilities would be enhanced through exposure to techniques that had been proven effective under actual combat conditions. Fort Harrison's reputation as the premier facility for advanced pilot development was enhanced by recognition that it had become the venue where human potential in military aviation was redefined. Sarah's performance would influence training methodologies and capability assessment practices at military facilities throughout the world, establishing new standards for excellence in competitive aviation. The day's events concluded with understanding that exceptional capability often existed in forms that defied conventional expectations. Sarah's demonstration that true excellence was measured through performance rather than appearance would influence how military communities approach talent identification and development for generations to come. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.